Hello folks, and welcome to the channel. I'm Paul. So in this episode I'm going to continue the flight for the instrument flight from Liverpool Airport to Blackpool Airport. For anyone who's not seen it already, if you're interested in how I've set this flight up on Flight Sim, then basically I've done another previous video just covering that. But basically on the end of the last video it took us to the point where we taxied to the holding point for runway 27. On this one I've just started again just at the point. I've done all of the checks and everything. I just wanted to test something out on Flight Sim, which is a little bit of a glitch that I seem to get, and I don't know if anyone else has had experienced this as well. But what happens is you actually set the flight up on either the initial menu, or on this occasion I've just done it via the actual flight plan, physically inputting the data into the flight management computer. But basically I've loaded it now for a 09 takeoff, so we've got the appropriate Nancy 2 Victor departure on that one. Sorry, Wallasey 2 Victor departure. So I've loaded that one up. I'm hoping they're going to give me that particular one, but what I've experienced before is when you load in a particular one, so you're loading, say, the Wallasey 2 Tango departure, when you do the ATC calls, it seems to give you clearance for using the opposite runway, which means you have to go back into it and then you have to load up the opposite departure, basically, so it messes up your flight plan. So I just wanted to really see whether that happened on this occasion if we do the ATC correct calls. So let's just see what they give us, and if anyone's experienced this themselves, I'd be really grateful if you could just let us know in the comments section what your experience of it is. So let's go. Request IFR clearance for instrument flight plan. Okay.
Liverpool ground Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra ready to copy IFR clearance to Blackpool.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is cleared to Blackpool Airport as filed. Takeoff runway 9er climb and maintain 9,000 feet. Departure frequency is 118.775 squawk tree 745.
Right, okay, so that's not done that example. It's actually given us the correct one.
Blackpool Airport is filed. Takeoff runway 9er climb and maintain 9,000 feet. Departure on 118.775 squawk tree 745.
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra readback is correct. Contact ground on 121.955 when ready to taxi.
Right, okay, so that's given us the correct one there. So yeah, it was given us when I was basically loading the flight plan, it was giving us runway 27 as like the automatic departure, and then I was getting IFR. When you speak to ATC, they were giving us the runway 09, bizarrely. So anyway, we're correct at that one, so let's get on with the taxi. So we've set everything up for 09. The navigation aids are all set for tracking 275 when we intercept Wallasey after takeoff, and I've got that on the backup one as well. Flight plan's all done and checked. I've just set the Blackpool non-directional beacon because the one for Liverpool on Flight Sim doesn't actually work for some reason, so we're all set up on there. So in reality we'd be ready to taxi, so let's just go to that. I'm going to try and do the ATC comms here as well. So request taxi IFR.
Liverpool ground Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra with whiskey ready to taxi IFR.
Okay, this is another little glitch I find sometimes with Flight Sim, where it doesn't actually give you a clearance. So let's just see. Say again, try that.
Liverpool ground Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra, say again please.
Yeah, it gives you the option to acknowledge the taxi clearance, but they don't actually give you a taxi clearance, bizarrely, so we'll presume that that's been done. So here we go. So it would be power would go back to idle, parking brake off, we'd have one landing light on this occasion, a good look around, and then power forward. Get the parking brake off. Okay, so power forward. First thing we do is check the brakes, okay, and give the instructor or examiner the option to check their brakes. What I'm going to do, we wouldn't do this in reality, but just for the purposes of this, I thought just taxi just to have a look at the Raven Air buildings, and we'll get rid of that as well. You can actually go into that hangar on this as well, and you've got the aircraft in their various liveries, and there on the right is the operations room as well, okay, where you go and book out your flights. So hopefully we're not bumping into anything here, so that would be embarrassing, but let's just carry on and we'll do the taxi. So it's going to be taxiing runway 09. We've got eyes out on the apron, checking that we're not coming into conflict with any other aircraft or ground crew or other pilots. So as we taxi out here, I'm going to do a right turn instrument check. We just look at the windsock, and it's very limp at the moment, which is good, low wind. Okay, and it's going to be compass increasing, DI increasing, turn right, ball left, AI steady, and if we had the ADF, because we had the NDB working, then it would also be ADF tracking. We'd check that, and then it's important that we do those checks carefully, because it's kind of a bit of a last chance really to get an indication if any of those instruments aren't working, which we don't want to discover in the air. So that's the importance of those taxi instrument checks. Again, it could be that if any of them are giving false direction readings as well, it would pick up that. So it's important that we do another taxi instrument check, and we'll do the left turn when we actually turn onto the as we approach the holding point prior to runway 09. So yeah, we'll be keeping a good look at the runway and looking about the taxiway and looking for any hazards. And we'll be looking at the windsock, and at this point as well listening out very carefully onto any ATC comms to just start building up situational awareness. We've got a 20 knot taxi speed limit on here when we're going in a straight line, so it's important we adhere to that while still being commercially viable in terms of not being too slow as well. I did have an occasion taxiing along here for real, and I asked my instructor about the taxi speeds, and he just confirmed the taxi speed details, and he said, having said that, there is a Ryanair flight just very close behind us, so that was quite brought a smile to the face really. So yeah, just have a look at the various, try and do this without, there's the terminal building there on the right, and it's very quiet with the current situation. Having another look at the windsock, there would be one windsock there. For some reason, I think it's just this add-on. It's one of those little glitches. The windsocks aren't quite perfectly aligned between the original and the add-on. But really, it's a very small price to pay for what's a really good detail. In terms of all the vehicles and different graphics are very good on this one. Okay, so we start bringing the speed back now to make that left turn. So just apply a little bit of brake. In reality, you'd try and ease off a little bit, and it's turn left, so it's compass decreasing, DI decreasing, turn left, ball right, AI steady. Bring the aircraft to halt there, about one aircraft length away from the holding point, and parking brake on, and then throttle back to 1200, and we can do our power checks and pre-takeoff checks as well. Throttle's just a little bit high, so just adjust that. Okay, so go to the checklist, and we're going to auto complete these items as well. We can skip the taxi because we've already done that. Auto complete page for run up. Okay, so this is really in reality where we would check the power, that we've got no major issues with oil pressures or temperatures, that all of the engine instruments are giving correct readings, that the aircraft is being able to generate the power that we require idle without stalling as well. So yeah, there's a number of tests that we do here at this point, and following very closely the checklist, making sure that we do every single item on it. So this, I've got the just, you can see there, just adjusting the RPM for the different settings, different power settings, and that's completed that page. And then we do the before takeoff checklist as well. We would include here a pre-takeoff briefing where we cover any rehearse exactly what's going to happen, and it's also covering the eventuality of any engine failure and what action we would take at those points. And then at the end of that, we'd also cover threat and error management also. And also then we would brief the standard instrument departure brief at this point. I don't propose to do that on this particular one, however in reality we would do, and I may do another video just covering the briefings of those if people would find that useful. But let's just have a look. So we can do the pre-takeoff brief. So we'll go back to checklists and we'll do the normal, we'll auto complete that page. Page complete. We would get our takeoff clearance, so Liverpool Tower, and request takeoff clearance IFR from Liverpool.
Liverpool Tower, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra at runway 9 are ready for departure IFR to Blackpool.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra altimeter 29.9
Okay, so
cleared for takeoff runway 9er.
We are taking off with a acknowledge that clearance. We're taking off with a tailwind, okay, because runway 9 is in use. Okay, and that as soon as we've cleared for takeoff, we would acknowledge that, and then it would be parking brake off, idle, power up, and ATPL. So approaches left and right, clear. Transponder, we check that's on alt. Okay, just a bit tricky doing this with the, but yeah, we're on alt on there. AT power, pitot heat and landing lights. Okay, so pitot heat, strobe, and landing lights on. Okay, and see if we. So we've overshot there a bit, unfortunately. It's just obviously in reality you don't have that issue because you're just reaching down for those items and you can still see out. Okay, so a normal takeoff, so it would be power to 30 inches in the Seneca, check power stable, and 40 inches, T's and P's normal, airspeed alive. Okay, we'll be looking for 77 knots in the Seneca, and then initial climb would be 89, but here significantly lower. So we pitch up for 10 degrees, and then trim for 10 degrees, maintaining that heading, and it would be positive rate, tap the brakes, gear up, and we're looking to climb to 500 feet barrow before we set climb power. Let's look at where we've taken off from. There's the River Mersey. Okay, so maintaining that heading 90 degrees. Got the power stations up ahead there, and all of the detailed bridges that comes with this pack. Okay, so there's 500 feet, so it'll be climb power 35 inches, 2400 RPM on the Seneca. 590 feet, so we can make our turn. Okay, tune Manchester Centre as well, and in reality we'd have that turn bugged, but again it's just one of the tricky things with flight sim of just trying to do the two things at once. Okay, so we bug that.
Sierra, did you copy?
And then ATC, acknowledge handoff.
118.775 for Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra. Manchester Center Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is at 1,000 feet, climbing 9,000 feet.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Manchester Center altimeter 29.902 continue as planned.
Okay, so what I'm looking at doing now is if we can just get that climb speed stable. We'll see there on the right hand side, that's the relevant radial that we're going to do, so I'm going to time the turn to intercept that radial now, and that will take us to Wallasey. Okay, so making that turn, and that's 275 degrees, which we would bug before making the turn. So this is just a good, really good for anyone who's doing flight training at the moment. It's a really good method of practicing, just to try and keep those skills. Okay, we do our after takeoff checks. So it would be, again, I'll do this for the Seneca. I've just put a little bit too much pressure on the stick there, which has just affected the rate of climb that we had. So let's just get that back and get that heading correct as well. In reality, we'd be looking at a heading that takes into account the wind, but fairly low wind day today, which should make things easier. So now you can see that that beam bar is now centralised, which means that we are flying the track towards Wallasey, which you can see here, that represents that beam bar. Now the departure, what I'll just need to do, I'm just going to do the after takeoff checks. So it would be so flaps are up, cowl flaps closed, power we'd set, we'd adjust the manifold power pressure for the climb, check for ice, and then it would be engine instrument just check and landing lights off. Okay, now there's something that happens in reality. We can see that I'm trying to look slightly to the left of the radial, so I'm going to turn to try and maintain that. The vertical speed has reduced, so I'm going to pitch up slightly a bit there with that one as well, to try and just maintain that track. And the other thing that you can see here is because of that departure, I've effectively flown north slightly. It's not picked up the next leg, which is basically from here to Wallasey. So it may be that I need to just do a direct 2 for that one as well. What we would be doing in reality is fairly soon we'd select the autopilot. So we're going to just do that because it's just going to take the workload off slightly whilst I just get that. In fact, actually we're okay now. It's actually gone magenta. So that means that the aircraft is recognising it. Okay, so I'm slightly to the left of the radial, so I'm going to make a heading correction to get to it, and we've got 500 feet per minute. That's for this aircraft. In reality, for the Seneca, because it's a twin engine aircraft, it would be more like 800, 900 feet per minute in reality, and that's going to give us get us up to the cruise obviously much quicker, and having covered a shorter distance over the ground, which is going to give us more time to do the various things we need to do in the cruise. So I'd be looking at checking that making adjustments to the fuel mixture and the manifold pressure, just increasing that power as the pressure actually decreases in the climb. And we'd be aiming to cross Wallasey, which is there at 4,000 feet. We could do a tip check, so we check that we've got the transition altitude set on the altimeter, which is done automatically. We'd check for ice, and then we would check that the power's set. Now we can see the aircraft's coming back to the radial there, the magenta one, and as that line represents that line there, so we can see that that's coming in nicely now. Okay, so let's just get this set up. What I'm going to do is just get the autopilot set up. So we'd always select a lateral mode first of all, which is the current heading. Switch it on first helps, so lateral mode, and then we can set vertical speed. Okay, so let's go for 500 there, and just check. It's important to take your hands off the controls for when the autopilot is going, and just check the monitoring. Again, we'll be checking these instruments and checking the navigation as well, that everything's going well. And as you can see here, I've not shown much of the ground there, but we can see just outside there's the River Mersey and the docks as we enter cloud. Okay, so it's approaching 4,000 feet, but we were cleared to, I believe, 12,000 feet, was it? Let's just have a look. feet. So in reality, we just can have a continual climb up to that. We'll have 7, 8, 9. There we go. Vertical speed 500 feet. Okay, we've just come out the top of that cloud there. Check our tracking, and we're just slightly to the left now, so we can just make a slight heading correction to just bring that back in. And this will get a lot more sensitive as we approach Wallasey as well, so it's going to be a lot more sensitive. So we're not going to be too worried about being slightly off at this point. The one important thing that we do need to make sure as well is that we've been using the Wallasey navigation aid for this stretch of it, for this departure. That's how we would fly. So we're on what's called VLOC there. Okay. For the next stretch, when we've passed over Wallasey, we need to then change to GPS mode, and then it should follow this GPS track as well. Just be checking instruments and power as well. Let's just get rid of that for now. Okay, and it's given us the other track. Okay, so 309. So we change to that. Okay, and we change to GPS mode. And we can see now that the next leg of the line, which is Wallasey to Pennell, has gone to GPS as well, so that's magenta. So let's just see. I think what I'm going to do is leave this flight now from this point for now, because otherwise the video could get a little bit too long, but hopefully that's been of interest to you. If you are interested in watching the progress as I continue this flight, then please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you hit the notification bell, it will notify you, YouTube will notify you when I do the next video, which will be the en route section, where we'll cover the en route checks, things like the changing the instruments, doing the arrivals brief or the approach brief plate, and getting the ATIS weather, etc. For the en route section. So hopefully you found that useful. As I say, it can be a bit tricky doing it on the flight sim as well, because you've got using your left hand and your right hand with various things while you're not keeping your full awareness. But yeah, hope that's been of use. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks for commenting, and I will speak to you soon on the next one. Bye for now.